acknowledged, reprimanded, but even then some remain shirtless. This growing level of bias against female students is unacceptable. The dress code, which calls for no low-cut tops, blouses, dresses, as well as not allowing bare midriffs, halters, or spaghetti straps, clearly imposes a level of propriety that is not imposed on our fellow male students. A young woman who is learning more of herself each day and expressing herself through her apparel should not be impeded on by patriarchal standards. The student handbook reads that concern for the standards of others should prevail in all questions pertaining to dress and appearance. These standards are one-sided, and when put into context within situations regarding female students and their clothing, push the agenda that it is the responsibility of young women to control how their bodies are perceived by male counterparts. The incident on August 26th is just one in a long history of bias against female students, not just at the Lincoln Way schools, but at schools across the U.S. To conclude, it is imperative that the female students at these schools feel that their voices are being heard. Please hear us and understand that the history of objectification and bias behind the dress code is one that should end with us. I'm hopeful that these presentations serve as an introduction to a broader dialogue to include collaborations with student representatives on revising this policy. And now a statement from Senior Travis Ducksworth, who regretfully couldn't be in attendance today. To whom it may concern, as a male student of Lincoln Way, I have seen the disruptiveness of the current dress code firsthand. I can assure you my peers and I have never once been distracted by 2 inches of a girl's abdomen or the bare skin of her shoulders. Speaking on behalf of the male student body, we do not converse or fantasize about it. This leads to the common belief within the student body. The current dress code exists not for the male students, but rather is the product of what the administration decided for the male students. So why punish the girls for that? Yes, some attire is not proper setting, but that has rarely ever been an issue. The young women at East are typically dress coded for less than minor infractions of the handbook, and to their defense, the building reaches uncomfortable temperatures during the summer months. It is as if you expect them to wear jeans and long sleeve shirts in humid 80-degree weather. I do not see how it is okay for young adult women to be punished by a teacher for wearing an outfit that her parents are okay with her wearing. And sometimes it's not even what about a girl is wearing. They do not choose the bodies that they are given. Trying to regulate and hide their bodies is a near impossible task that they cannot always control, and the school should not try to control it either. The only time attire becomes a distraction is when deans and teachers point out what a girl is wearing, and the witnesses stare awkwardly in empathy for their classmate. The dress code has a clear prejudice towards the young women of Lincoln Way. As a male, I have no opinion on how to fix this problem, as it is not for me to decide. This letter was written with the intent of showing that it is not just the girls who have noticed the issue. The rules are counterproductive in the way that the method of stopping a distraction is to create one. How is the district maximizing the academic growth for their students if the rules hinder our learning experience? Thank you, Travis Ducksworth and Ross Johnson.
Thank you. Thank you. Moving on, we have Layla James.
Eames.
And Cord.
Hi there, my name is Layla Eames and I'm a senior at Lincoln Way East. I'm extremely involved in our community as I participate in theater and have received straight A's through all 4 years of high school in AP and honors classes.
And I'm Cora Goodwin. I'm also a senior with a large involvement in the school. I'm president and founder of Femme Power and varsity athlete, but that doesn't matter as much because the dress code is a universal problem with our student body.
I have pride in our district and am grateful for the opportunities that I've had as a Griffin. But I've been disappointed with the administration's lack of care for the security and comfort in their female-identifying student body. By assuming bare midriffs and collarbones are distracting, it further enforces that it's a female's job to make sure men can control themselves. By pulling female-identifying students out of class, therefore distracting them from their learning environments, our dress code has done the opposite of that its intended purpose.
We recently sent out a survey to the student body that was voluntary, but we received over 120 responses of students who took the time out of their day to tell us how and express how the dress code has affected them and their experience at Lincoln Way.
One response read, "Why should a teacher have the right or authority to decide what is deemed as suggestive on a female teenager's body?" I then had to take time out of my day to get clothes to cover up when I was only wearing said clothes because it was hot in the building. I also felt singled out because many male students were also wearing tank tops and did not receive the same treatment.
Another response said, I can't wear appropriate clothing for the weather, but rather have to wear appropriate clothing for males.
And another said, this is the start of victim blaming mentality. This is where boys learn not to be responsible for their own actions. This is sexism. This teaches and ingrains children with sexist views, which is extraordinarily dangerous. It's time to reevaluate our dress code and our attitudes at Lincoln Way East. Enough said, the student body has made it very clear that it is time to enact change and to bring attention to the sexist and ill-enforced dress code for the Lincoln Way District.
As a solution to this dilemma, we think it is the best course of action to amend our dress code to be more inclusive to all body types, races, and gender identities. We found an exemplary dress code from Evanston Township High School. The Evanston dress code has many admirable qualities. It's split up into 3 sections describing what students must wear, may wear, and cannot wear. Along with that, they include an entire section dedicated to the enforcement of the dress code, which Lincoln Way's dress code outline is lacking.
The Evanston dress code begins with the basic principle. Certain bodies must be covered for all students at all times. Clothes must be worn in such a way that all private areas are fully covered with opaque fabric. However, cleavage should not have coverage requirements. All items listed within must wear and may wear categories below must meet this basic principle.
While the enforcement section on the Lincoln Way dress code just says that students who are appropriately dressed will be taken out of class and sent to SSO and sent back to class after agreement has been reached, the Evanston dress code dives much farther into the depth of the enforcement, specifically stating how to enforce the dress code fairly without discrimination against certain genders or races and without publicly shaming students. It says, no student should be affected by dress code enforcement because of racial identity, sex assigned at birth, gender identity or expression, sexual orientation, ethnicity, culture, or religious identity, household income, body size and shape, or body maturity.
The Evanston dress code also says that students should not be shamed or required to display their bodies in front of other students, parents, or staff in school. Shaming includes, but is not limited to, kneeling or bending over to check attire fit, measuring straps or skirt length, asking students to account for their attire in the classroom or in hallways in front of others, calling out students in spaces, in hallways, or in classrooms about perceived dress code violations in front of others. In particular, directing students to correct sagged pants and to not expose the entire undergarment, or confronting students about visible bra straps, since visible waistbands and straps on undergarments are permitted, and accusing students of distracting other students with their clothing.
Evanston's amended dress code received props from the Chicago Tribune, Insider, and many other well-known news outlets for being a revolutionary act and respecting their students, as well as showing commitment to listening to kids and what they need and being open to as many different voices as possible.
We think that it is in all of our best interests to draw inspiration from the Evanston's new dress code and adopt one similar. It is more fair, practical, and more sophisticated in enforcement. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much. Next up, we have Christian.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Christian Buma. I am a senior at Lincoln Way East. I am a student at Lincoln Way East. When the gym class incident in August happened, common remarks I heard from guys around me were, I don't care, the dress code doesn't affect me, or why does it matter? Just follow the dress code and everything will be fine. They're right. The dress code hasn't affected guys. It has affected women, women of color, gay women, trans women, non-binary students. But it hasn't affected guys, so why should we care? What has been proposed is, for decades long, is a dress code that has been proven in practice to be built upon patriarchal standards that put women below men. It is hard to beget empathy from people who are incapable of it, but that fact is only hardened by the chosen and constant policing of young women's bodies, which is always preceded by the statement, it is a distraction to other students. Those other students are always male. This code continues to encourage the existence of the male gaze, something that creates more of a dangerous learning environment for girls, and even more so for young women of color, whose mere existence is overshadowed, uncared for, even spoken over in this fight for an equitable world. regardless of honors distinctions, academic rankings, or metrics. At the end of the day, these women of color, these gay women, trans women, non-binary students, they are still students. They are still people. We can't keep letting boys be boys or keep letting a cycle of cover-ups continue. And we can't keep saying, I wouldn't want to see my daughter doing this or that. It's not up to us men to design our daughters' lives, to design these students' lives to our liking, or to create standards upon these mirages that simply do not exist. That is all. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, Ross, you already got both yours incorrect because you're on here twice. I'm sorry, you signed up twice. I take it you got your. No. Okay. No, it's fine. It's just that it was written twice, and I think because she read the second statement. Okay. The other student that couldn't be here. I just wanted to make sure that you got everything read. Okay. Thank you. And our next speaker is Delaney. Oh, you do want to speak again? I'm sorry. Yes. Please come on back up. You're on the list, Ross.
The following is a quote from the National Women's Law Center. While all students disciplined for dress code violations face interruptions, Black girls face unique dress code and hair burdens. For example, some schools ban styles associated with Black girls and women, like hair wraps. Black girls also face adult stereotype perceptions that they are more sexually provocative because of their race, and thus more deserving of punishment for a low-cut shirt or short skirt. Girls who are more physically developed or curvier than their peers may also be viewed as more promiscuous by adults, which can lead them to being punished for more often for tight or revealing clothing. Dress codes also communicate to students that girls are to be blamed for distracting boys instead of teaching boys to respect girls, correct their behavior, and be more responsible. This dangerous message promotes sexual harassment in schools. Freshman year is not an easy year for any student, regardless of who they are. During my freshman year, after laughing and enjoying lunch with friends one day, an administrator came up to me and told me that the red bandana I was wearing on my head was inappropriate. When I brought up the fact that I had seen several of my peers, who all happened to be white, had been wearing bandanas that day, I was told to survey the lunchroom to see if any of the students were disobeying the dress code in the way that I was. No one was. As an inexperienced freshman, I did as I was told, discarded the bandana, revealing the hair that I had tried so desperately to hide that day. I was commended for choosing to be respectful. Looking back, I should have questioned this conversation. Why was I targeted out of the many other white students that were wearing the same thing? Was there an underlying assumption of gang activity on my part? Did this administrator expect me to be disrespectful? As a young Black woman at a predominantly white school, the dress code is something that weighs heavily on me from day to day. To come to school each day and deal with the feeling of constantly being scrutinized is one thing, but I also have to keep in mind the dress code, which in the opinion of several African American students at East, is enforced on young Black women more heavily than my white female peers. This oppressive reality contributes to the daily misogynoir, a type of sexism that only Black women face due to the intersection of race and gender that African American women face.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Kemi Amani, and I'm a senior at Lincoln Way East High School as well. For 4 years, I've been proud to call Lincoln Way East my home, and I've been very active in the community. But the issues at our school cannot be ignored. The school's dress code specifically is one that targets Black students. My first experience with the school dress code was as a freshman. I was sitting in class, working on my biology homework, when my teacher asked me if I could raise my hand without my shirt rising. I stayed silent with bated breath because I knew the shirt was on the short side. My teacher forced me to leave the class and go to my locker to find a jacket I could wear over. Never mind that it was winter and the only jacket I had was a giant winter coat. My experience of being called out in front of all my peers was humiliating, and it wouldn't be the last. As I spent more time as a student, I noticed a trend around me. Specific types of students became dress code targets. Black girls who donned bonnets or scarves on their head, Black boys who dared to wear do-rags, Black students who were caught wearing bandanas, all found themselves the subject of write-ups or snide comments, simply because they were considered to be wearing hats, ignoring the fact that Black hair plays a major role in what they were wearing. The politics around Black hair is sensitive. and the need to regulate them is rooted in anti-Blackness. All while the white peers didn't even get so much as a second look. Every school day, Black students are made to feel like they don't belong. If it isn't for the racism they experience in and outside the classroom, our school dress code puts a nail in that coffin by punishing Black students for harmless forms of expression. Our goal at Lincoln East is to create a space where students feel included and cared for by administration. And the first step would be creating a dress code that doesn't make students feel like they're outsiders. Thank you.
Thank you. And our next speaker is Delaney. Great. Greer. I'm sorry.
Hi, my name is Delaney Grafe. I'm a senior at Lincoln Way East High School, which I am truly privileged to attend. Lincoln Way East has helped guide me on my college journey and helped me see future career options. I've made amazing memories at this school that I will cherish forever, but I do not feel content with leaving Lincoln Way East behind without revising its current dress code. We spend 175 days at the school, which is an average of 1,312 hours for the typical student. So as shown, the typical student spends about 58% of their day at school. These typical students also are not content with the dress code. At least 121 students from a survey my fellow peers conducted, to be exact and more. For example, from this survey from an anonymous student, the first time I was dress coded was on the first day of school, and I felt humiliated being that the teacher felt it was okay to yell at me in the middle of the hallway. And the second day, the teacher brought it up in front of my peers. The common courtesy of pulling me aside was not considered, and my confidence was finished as both outfits made me feel comfortable and happy. Another anonymous student stated, I was told to follow a teacher without any knowledge of why. She then brought me into another teacher's classroom with students already seating to ask if my rips on my jeans went against the dress code. This was unnecessary and disrupted my whole entire school day. This demonstrates our dress code is not effective because we are causing students to have lower self-esteem and critiquing their bodies, which causes one to feel inadequate. This is done simply to appease others and their opinions, which goes against the Lincoln Way harassment policy that states prohibited harassment may include but is not limited to oral harassment that is sufficiently severe, persistent, or pervasive. Calling people out for their apparel is extremely pervasive. However, there are many ways we can comment our concerns on students' apparel without embarrassing a student and disrupting their day. For example, we can email the student for them to see said email outside of school hours, which allows for the discussion to be opened up to the student's family, not a dean or teacher. Students should have freedom of expression, not be put into a box to appease others. Thank you for your time.
Looks like we've got time for one or two more. Alexa Peters.
Hi, my name is Alexa Peters. I'm a senior at Lincoln Way East. I'm here to share a couple personal anecdotes and to close out of the statements of my peers. On the first week of my freshman year, I came into school excited. It had been hot the entire week, racking up into the upper 90s. Like most of the girls and other people, including men, in my grade, I was wearing shorts, the same pair I had already worn twice the same week. For some reason, walking into my 0-hour class, it became an issue. At some point overnight, my shorts became a magnet of distraction for all the young men in my classroom. I was sent straight down to SSO, where I spun around, scrutinized by the administration, who have recently called girls my age hoochie mamas. I didn't pass the fingertip test because the top joint of my middle finger creeped over the edge of my shorts. I sat in the office for 45 minutes, waiting, humiliated, for my mom to drop off a pair of pants. I missed the entire period where we were reviewing for a quiz, and subsequently did not do so well on the quiz the following week. Schools often label the dress code offenders as distractions to other students, particularly female students to male students. That day, like the many other girls who've been victims of the same scrutiny, I lost what was supposed to be an equal learning environment, despite not doing anything to distract or disturb the learning environment. I wasn't sent home because of a complaint. I wasn't sent home because I was labeled a distraction. I was sent before I walked through the door. The real distractions are the rules that police women's bodies, that tell them that they have to subjugate themselves to being measured by fingertips and the obtrusive gazes of the adults who are there to teach them. I'm asking you today if you would consider a revision of the dress code, not just for me, but all the other students, women, trans women, non-binary students of our school who are adversely affected by it, like I have been. I hope you all have a good night. Thank you.
A couple things. First of all, every student, thank you for sharing your thoughts and opinions. We do appreciate that. District 210 Advisory is an advisory of the Board of Education, has representatives, board member. We've got student representatives, parent representatives, teachers, and the 3 principals. One of the items they will be studying this year is the dress code. It is on the agenda. So we do appreciate your input. We are going to look at Evanston. We have different dress code examples that they will look at, that they will discuss amongst their body, and then they will bring it back to the board from a recommendation to go forward. But thank you for your input and sharing your perspective on that. As I said, that is something that is on the agenda. The first meeting was last month. The next meeting will be in November. They meet once a month throughout the school year, and that is definitely a topic that is going to be studied.
All right, we've got time for one more speaker, which would put us at 30 minutes. So, Connor, Martel?